And the minute we started listening to students and started connecting those resources that existed in the community around childcare and healthcare and food and housing, is the minute students started to be more successful in the classroom because we were taking care of their lives outside the classroom. And so the impetus of my innovation as a leader has been to empower students to tell us who they are and what they need from us, and then to have the courage to listen to them.
This is Reimagining Higher Education, your go-to podcast with remarkable education leaders sharing personal stories from their experience in and around the sector, including reflection and hope for progress in the sector. With your host, Professor Judyth Sachs, former PVC Learning and Teaching at the University of Sydney, Deputy Vice-Chancellor and Provost at Macquarie University, and Special Advisor in Higher Education at KPMG, and now Chief Academic Officer at Studiosity. Welcome.
It gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Russell Lowery-Hart, who serves as the 9th Chancellor of the Austin Community College District. Russell, you've had an extraordinary career as both a change agent, a thought leader, and an extraordinary educator. I do ask people to bring an object that represents their journey as a leader and a learner. So what's your object that provides the icebreaker for our conversation today?
My object is Curly. This was my first real friend that I remember as a 3-4-year-old when I was sick, and I think has just always been a touch point for me throughout my life as a place of safety, a reminder of how important it is to have some kind of support. I grew up in a really stressful family, and Curly was the person that I talked to. And I think about Curly a lot. She sits in my office because I think so often we have students that feel like all they have in the world is a Curly instead of a person, and trying to create a college full of real people that in some level makes stuffed animals joyful, not required to live. The Curly was a part of my requirement, like the first real friend I had, I think, in the world.
So Curly provided you with some sort of continuity, some sort of safety, but also abstract friendship. Yeah.
An ear, support, but definitely safety. Like I could tell Curly anything, and didn't feel judged, didn't feel unsafe, didn't feel anything but safety and love.
So has this shaped your approach to leadership, but also your approach to education, the need for safety, the need for security? And if it is,
Or love, yeah.
how has that manifest itself?
In very real ways. So as a faculty member, when I look back on my time directly in the classroom for all the years that I taught, I I created classroom experiences um, that were full of love, inclusion, acceptance, safety, um, relationship support, and that when those classes had that kind of radical inclusion, radical learning was able to take place, and learning that was more than just content, but learning that could allow students to rethink their lives and their communities.
So for an Australian audience who aren't quite familiar with the community college system,
Yeah.
and can you just describe to us what a community college, what the aspirations are of a community college, and how they fit into the broader further and higher education system, not only in the state of Texas, but in America?
So most of my career, I actually spent in universities and the traditional university. I left for a community college 16 years ago, And I left because I felt like community colleges were the place of innovation and the place where communities went um, to find to find and define themselves. So community colleges, in essence, are the first 2 years of any bachelor's degree we offer, but they're also the place that you go to find workplace skills that lead to family sustaining wages, like welding, like automotive, like HVAC and electrical, nursing, um, uh, radiology techs, pharmacy techs, those workforce skills you get here. But if you just need a start towards a bachelor's degree, you can get that at a community college. But in America, we are the most affordable option, and we're an open access option. So anybody in any part in their time in their life can get into a community college. Um, there's not an application process that where we decide who gets in and who doesn't. If you're in the community, you get into the college, and our job is to find the supports that you need to get to the success we want you to have.
So, at the core of what you as an educator are wanting to do is to support and sustain student success, but you're also known to be an innovator. And in fact, the things that I've read about you, you're quite radical. A launch of a pilot for free tuition, creating opportunities for more Central Texans to attend college without financial barriers. You've also expanded the college's basic needs support, including emergency aid, childcare, food assistance, and more, ensuring students have the resources they need to persist and thrive. How have you done that?
I I did those things because I had the courage to listen to students. And I think as a faculty member, I was always an innovative educator. I would find active learning and applied learning and service learning. I was always looking for ways to make the classroom real and applicable. As an administrator, um, my innovation started with data and it started with students. And I looked at our data. I took that data to students to have students tell me where and why students were struggling to finish a degree or to stay on a pathway or to stay in class. And truly, I went into those conversations as an academic. I went in thinking students were going to tell me what I thought I already knew, that students need more applied learning. They need more engaged pedagogy. They need um, all kinds of academic supports. But what changed me as a person and as a leader was that when students looked at that data, they looked at me like, oh, you don't really know why students are struggling? And I'm like, well, of course I do. I just need you to tell me. And then what students told me shocked me. That when
Mhm.
students looked at our retention data and our persistence data and our completion data and our success in classroom data, instead of telling me that the biggest barriers to their success in the classroom was instruction and uh, application and real world understanding, what they told me repeatedly and what I found in data analysis afterwards is their success in the classroom or failure in the classroom had everything to do with what was happening outside the classroom. And that if I cared about student success and learning in the classroom, I had to care equally about what was happening to them outside the classroom. And so students told me childcare, transportation, food, housing, legal services, because we penalize poverty in America in ways we don't penalize other things, that all of these life happenstances were impeding their learning in the classroom. And I had been an academic who had only thought about students and what was they were experiencing in the classroom. And then I needed to build systems that love students equally outside the classroom. And the minute we started listening to students and started connecting those resources that existed in the community around childcare and healthcare and food and housing is the minute students started to be more successful in the classroom because we were taking care of their lives outside the classroom. That was the impetus of my innovation. That innovation then led to having students to to define what the perfect college looked and felt like for them, and and using those as values, then we then wrote into our job descriptions and our evaluations, both as employees and faculty. Um, and so the impetus of my innovation as a leader has been to empower students to tell us who they are and what they need from us, and then to have the courage to listen to them.
And does that fit in with your own story, your own personal narrative in terms of how you yourself became successful?
Yeah, it does. I think throughout my life, from a very early age, schools and teachers were my safe place. They were where I found love and encouragement, um, and so I tried to create that in the classroom, and I think I've been trying to create it in the organizations that I lead as well. Maybe not with the clarity of understanding of what its origins were until later. Um, but education's changed my life, and uh, I want to create environments that do that for other students. What's doing it for students today, I think, is different than when it was when I was a student. Um, but its origins are all the same. It's care, it's love, it's support. And I responded to teachers that made me feel loved and cared for, and students today respond to faculty and staff when they feel loved and cared for. I'm just trying to build entire organizations around that concept of love rather than just a singular classroom.
So how do you do that in complex political and inverted commas political organizations
Yeah.
such as colleges and universities?
Um, it's both complicated and simple. Um, what our students have told us repeatedly at multiple institutions where I've led this level of transformation is they want the college to be full of people that will care about them and help them. So the way we're doing that here in Austin is that we asked the students to tell us what they needed from us, and they gave us 4 words that are now the values of the college. And a lot of values are, problem solving and critical thinking, and those I don't think those are actually values. I think they're the purposes of higher education. The values are our behavioral responses to fulfilling those purposes. And so what students told us here is they need employees that are courageous in tackling all of the bureaucratic barriers that get in the way. They need they need faculty and staff that are compassionate, that will know who our students are, not who they used to be, or who we wished they were, or who we thought they were, or who we were when we were in college, but actually knowing who these students are. They want us to bring joy to the work. So courage, compassion, joy. Our students, especially our first gen students that are living in the war zone of poverty, bring fear instead of fun. They want coming to school to be joyful, but so often our bureaucracies and our vernacular and our processes breed fear and uncertainty. They want it to breed joy. And they want us to bring, yes, I was stunned, Judy, by the amount of times our bureaucracy told our students no. And Judyth, you hopefully you haven't lived in bureaucracies that tell you no all the time, but our bureaucracies in higher ed are often complicated, overly, we higher ed ourselves. We wrap ourselves in rules and bureaucracies that are designed to tell people and each other no, and our students just want us to find a way to get to a yes. Here's how we can help them. So courage, compassion, joy, and yes. are the values that our students have written for this college. We're hiring to them, we're evaluating them. We have data summits where we close the college down to talk about them. And the impact is not just for our students. The impact is that those values have changed the way we receive our work. And I think my colleagues here are finding courage, compassion, joy, and yes with each other as much as they are with our students. But you change systems by listening to your students, tell you where and how to simplify your systems. And the values have been the first place that we've tried to do that.
It seems to me that there would be many occasions when those values, even though I embrace them, you embrace them, they run counter to a bureaucratic discourse of control
Yeah.
and compliance. How have you had pushback, and how have you managed to subvert the pushback towards the best interests of students?
A couple of things have been really helpful because, yes, I get pushback. We all do when we're trying to lead transformation of bureaucracies that are literally designed to protect themselves from transformation. Um, so one is to humanize the bureaucracy and who it's trying to serve. So in Austin, our typical student is Ashley. We did a naming analysis, and Ashley was the number one name across all student demographics. Ashley is a 27-year-old female of color, first gen, living in financial stress, working two part-time jobs, and raising 1.2 kids. That is our typical student at Austin Community College. She's the typical student for community colleges across the country. Yet so often our history and our bureaucracies were designed for the 18-year-old that just graduated high school, is going to school full time, and has a family that can help translate all of that bureaucratic nonsense that gets in the way. So when you are questioning every every naming convention, every process, and every policy through Ashley's lens rather than our lens, humanizing that bureaucracy is really, really important. And then it allows our employees to think about it in an other-centered way and rather than a self-centered way. So that's the first step. The second step is that you have to empower the people that are charged with navigating the bureaucracy every day to actually change it, our frontline employees. And it's hard. The resistance often comes from leadership who get in positions of power because they're adept at navigating the bureaucracy. And then some guy comes in and says, I need you to change your concept of leadership. And it's simplifying, radical simplicity and radical transparency and scale at listening to our students is actually recentering leadership to empower our frontline employees to change the bureaucracy without my ability to say yes or no to it. And so we've engaged in a redesign of our college, empowering our frontline employees. And you can't be a dean or higher and be in that redesign process because as leadership, we're often disengaged from the very structures of the college. And I need to empower the employees that know why and where and how it's broken to listen to our students and fixing it. And we're in that process right now and doing some pretty interesting and innovative things. The free tuition came out of that process. The basic needs structures and scale have come out of that process. The upward evaluation that's holding leadership accountable to those values have come out of that process, and we'll only get better at it from here.
So when you think about your institution, take me for a walk around. So if you and I met each other and you said, Judith, let's go for a walk around campus, what would you show me? And what would be the things that you would want me to take away?
Well, I'm going to give you two different scenarios. I'm going to tell you about the walk that I took with students the week before I officially started as the chancellor in October of 23. And I met two students in this parking garage, and I'm like, so walk me through your traditional day. Um, Judyth, that day did not include people. It included navigating to classrooms. It included navigating to websites, um, making inquiries via email. But their typical day, if it did include people, was trying to have people help you learn where to go to find something. What would happen today, 2.5 years later, is we would be going to our food pantry. We would be walking to our welcome center full of people uh, that will tell you how proud they are of you for coming to college and how excited they are to help you and help you navigate wherever you needed to get in the college. It would be um, our financial aid office that bends over backwards to help students find the resources they need. It would be advisors. It would be taking to advisors that are loving students onto a pathway that have structures that keep them on that pathway until they're successful. 2.5 years later, it would be wayfinding that removes all doubt of where you're supposed to go and who you're supposed to find. But today, we would be going to specific places, tutoring centers full of people that are waiting on students and are willing to love them to success.
So, reinforcing that sense of belonging and reducing isolation.
Every step of the way is not just reinforcing the belonging, but seeing belonging as the foundation of that support. That advising isn't just about scheduling, it is about loving on that student where they feel a part of something. It's not just about getting childcare or basic needs in a case managed food pantry, but loving students to those resources. Those are in service to that bigger culture of love and care, not just initiatives that we're executing separate of that.
So, give me an example of one of your greatest success stories? And I hope there are many.
There are many. I would say there's two kinds of success stories. One is when the individual student success isn't a one-off that we put on video and trot out because it makes us feel better about all the other failures that we haven't dealt with. But when that student success story is profound and moving, but it represents data that there are thousands of other student success stories, that is one. And that success story now, what I know here at ACC is our most successful students, based on our data, are engaging with a social worker, use mental health support, engage in tutoring. Those students are the most successful in our academic classrooms. Our data writ large shows that when our students engage the supports we offer for them, they are successful in completing their degrees and then getting profound labor market outcomes. That is the most important kind of success story where our systems, whether it's basic needs, whether it's academic support, or whether it's learning, are glued together in a way that the student doesn't have to navigate multiple different bureaucracies to get loved and cared for. The other kind of success story is when an employee sees a need and instead of immediately responding with an email up a chain saying, here's an issue and it keeps reoccurring, will someone fix it? They immediately feel empowered to solve that problem for that student, but then understand that if this student has this barrier, there are hundreds, if not thousands more, and I'm going to fix that barrier. And then I'm going to tell my supervisor, hey, here's what I've done, but not passively bureaucratically ask for permission that will never come, where the frontline employee is empowered to serve Ashley in a real way and then to serve all the other Ashleys they know exist in solving that problem. It's really systematic challenge, systematic transformations that the student doesn't see and the employee does.
So, what's been the response from your academic colleagues within the college, but also within the sort of community college sector? Have they thought that you were courageous and heroic? I thought I can't do this myself, or have you created this momentum of transformative change?
I think in the beginning of these transformations, the questions are always, what? Are you kidding? I'm not here to love, I'm here to educate. Um, but the more we listen to our students and the more we look at our data, the more our faculty and staff feel free to walk in why they actually engaged in the work. And in community colleges in particular, because we're so tied to the community, there is such an opportunity for innovation and real-time responsiveness that four-year universities often protect themselves from. And so I think there's freedom to try, there's freedom to fail on our journey to improvement in a community college sector. And so I think what I actually bring is an ability to reconnect with why we all wanted to do this to begin with, which isn't to fight bureaucracy. It's actually to care for and educate and love students. And when your bureaucracy gets out of the way of that, coming to work is more fun than it's ever been.
So, as you're talking, I'm actually hearing a really strong message as you've got a real clarity of purpose. You actually know who you are, what you do, how you do it, and the impact you want to have. That's sort of unique because many universities and colleges are trying to be something that they're not because they're aspirational.
I agree with that wholly. I would pinpoint the difference is that we're aspirational in loving our students, and institutions that are aspirational and loving themselves often get lost in a selfish game of power and influence and importance. And institutions that are really clear that they're here to love students let go of those traditional territorial siloed battles, but actually get more external validation than they would if they were fighting for it on their own and for the wrong reasons. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it certainly requires grit and courage.
Courage to listen to your students and empower your employees that serve them more directly. Your frontline faculty and your staff have to feel empowered to love students to success. And I use that word love very intentionally because this work is personal. And for our students, for us to have the impact, our work with students has to be personal. Yet our bureaucracy often tries to depersonalize everything, and that's where we lose our magic. The more personalized the work is, the more hope I have in it.
Can we just change the direction of our conversation briefly? In the last 2 years, AI has become both a source of fear, but now sort of reframed as a source of opportunity. Where does AI fit in terms of the pedagogy and the experience that your students have?
Well, I think we're like most institutions, whereas we have varying different levels uh, of application of AI. The where we are institutionally and where our faculty are engaging very intentionally is um, we have a dedicated philosophy to AI that mirrors our philosophy in serving to students. that AI should free us up to be more human in service to our students, and it should maximize our humanity and service to each other and our students. So I'll give you an example of what we're working towards right now. Um, like most institutions, we're drowning in information about our students, and it's in disparate softwares and EIPs and different systems within the institution. AI is allowing us to capture all of that information in real-time action, um, and and then act on it. So whereas our old approach would be faculty would see they inputted test in a grade book and identified 5 students that uh, were struggling on that test, and they would go to a separate system and put in an early alert that would then be emailed to an advisor that says this student's struggling, they need tutoring, and then they would reach out to the student and say, hey, you have an early alert on this class and you need to go to tutoring. Here's the website. That's a 3-week process, where what we're building to now is the minute of the grade is inputted in the grade book and it's below a certain standard, we can immediately reach out to the student and say, hey, um, students that they get a 75 or higher on this test have a higher probability of success when they engage tutoring. We need you to engage tutoring. Do you want it in person? Do you want it online? Do you want it right now? Do you want it later? But it's an immediate action, not a 3-week delay. AI allows us to be more human, more immediately in serving our students, and less reliant on websites and emails, and more reliant on uh, immediate actionable data. And that's what we're trying to use AI for right now.
So, in respect to student learning, um, AI gives an opportunity for students to collect information, but not necessarily attribute it. And so it requires um, clarity on their part about how to manage AI in a way that's both honest, shows integrity, but also demonstrates that they understand and they've learned something. Where does that fit in terms of your, and I absolutely agree with in terms of collecting data, in terms of analyzing what's happening here, but in terms of the student learning, where does
Yeah.
it fit?
Um, well, it's going to have to fit in a transition, uh, and it's the transition our faculty are engaging, right? So um, the conversation I have with our faculty is very similar, Judith, to what you just laid out. And there aren't immediate easy answers, but I can tell you what we're chewing on and working on at the moment is is that we're having to change our pedagogy and our assignments, where AI is making access to any information real, but that doesn't mean our test and our assignment should just be a regurgitation of what students that can now ask AI to help them regurgitate. It's got to be those higher level applications and integrations, and 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 that is still currently AI proof. And so our classrooms now are having more in-person writing assignments where we're trying to incorporate AI, where we're training prompts. So instead of vilifying AI and outlawing it, teaching students how to appropriately use it in their work. Because if we don't, they're going to get into the workplace and they're going to use AI to write a report, and they're not going to know how to do it. And just telling students you can't use AI in my class isn't preparing them for the workplace either. So we're having to rethink our assignments, our prompts, our pedagogy, and and I just remember, I'm so old, Judith. I remember in the mid 90s when the internet became a thing, and I was in faculty meetings and we were lamenting, oh my God, the internet's going to ruin education. It's going to make us obsolete. They're not going to need us anymore. The conversations now feel exactly the same level of fear and uncertainty. We met that moment we can meet this moment. The tool is faster. The tool is broader. The tool does more, which means we're going to have to be faster. We're going to have to think more broadly, and we're going to have to leverage the tool to do more. And I think we can do it.
I've got two more questions. If you and I were to have this conversation again in like 3 years' time, what do you think you and I would talk about?
I think we might actually talk about and laugh about the fear we have of AI. And I think one of the conversations that we may have, can you remember how afraid we all were of this thing replacing us? And now look at how it's made us more responsive and more functional, and we're able to be more human than we've ever been and more creative than we've ever been. I think that's one conversation that we would have 3 years from now. The other conversation that I think we might have 3 years from now is, can you believe how much the landscape of higher education has changed because of AI, where there are fewer institutions who didn't make the transition with it, who uh, just wrote policies outlawing it, but didn't rethink their pedagogy through it. And then you have institutions like ours that are trying to appropriately, philosophically, ethically embrace it, train it, understand it, build with it. And AI is going to produce winners and it's going to produce losers. And we're going to be surprised who's on each one of those lists.
My last question. What's your summer reading?
Oh, okay. So, one, just pure fiction is
Mm-hmm.
reading Ann Patchett's Whistler. Just a lovely, quiet, sweet, beautiful novel. The other thing that I'm reading is Marcel Fuentes' Humane Leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it maybe is the book that best captures who I want to be as a leader. And then uh, I heard this podcast with Will Guidara, and it's this process called unreasonable hospitality. That he thinks the solution, especially in an AI world, is that we just build unreasonably hospitable systems, that we think about our service to each other in terms of how we can be the most hospitable possible. And this is a conversation that my college and I have been having and will start to have this fall more intentionally. Hospitality as the center of activating what real systemic love is.
Well, Russell, this has been an extraordinary conversation, and it's been a great way for me to start my day. And I hope it's been a great way for you to end your day. Thank you
Yes.
for giving me time to talk to you. And I do hope at some stage our paths find some way to connect.
Well, let's make sure they do, and let's make sure they do in person. I'll come to you or you come to me.
Let me invite
I'll
you to
come to
Australia.
Italy. Yeah, or Australia. Yes. We can meet in Italy or Australia. Judyth, thank you for just an honoring and lovely conversation.
You have been listening to Studiosity's podcast, Reimagining Higher Education, candid conversations within higher education, sharing stories of leadership, change, and best practice in teaching and learning. Visit studiosity.com.